So I guess this call, obviously, we're specifically talking about how communities can act on climate change. We know that we all need to take actions as individuals to do what we can and stave off the worst effects of the climate crisis. But sometimes it's quite difficult to think, what can we do as a community? How can we band together and have more of an impact? So whatever your setup is, whether you're part of a group already or you just you know your neighbours, there could be something that you could do to help tackle climate change. It's about communities coming together, connecting and taking positive actions, whether it's around energy use, waste management, conserving nature. So we've got some great speakers today who are going to tell us about what they've done, a variety of things. But before we kick off, we're going to do a quick breakout room. So this is just going to be for 5 minutes for just so you can meet a few people who are here today, and get to know who else is on the call and connect with somebody new. It'll be very short, 5 minutes. So we're just going to ask you to say your name, where you're from, what you're doing at the moment, or what you want to do to help tackle climate change, and you'll be surprised at how fast that 5 minutes disappears. So we've arranged this event with Renew Wales, Adfywio Cymru, and Delith is on the call today, who's joining us. And all the groups that we're speaking to, all the speakers have been supported in some way by Renew Wales. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Delith, and she'll be sharing a little bit more about what Renew Wales do and a few things their groups have been up to. And then we'll go on to our speakers in a moment. So over to Delith.
Okay, thank you very much. Bore da pawb, mae'n hyfryd I gael y cyfle I ddangos y gwaith sy'n mynd mlaen yng Nghymru ar lefel cymunedol. Let me just start sharing my screen. So I work for Renew Wales, and here is our sort of strapline: people supporting people to take enterprising action on climate change and sustainability. So by climate change, we want people to reduce their emissions, to prevent further escalation of climate change, to adapt proactively and positively to change on the changes that climate change will bring, and generally to live more sustainably. In terms of enterprising, that is people doing it for themselves. It's not waiting for government or authorities, big business, anybody to come and help solve the problem, but doing it ourselves and using our own creativity for that. And people supporting people element is all about peer-to-peer support. For those who've already taken action on climate change and those who haven't yet, but they could. Those who've done a little bit but could do more, and it builds the capacity of those people who are receiving support and giving it. No, it's not even moving my slides on anymore. So who we are, we're a programme hosted by and managed by DTA Wales, which is the Development Trust Association Wales. We're set up by a group of third sector organisations with a strong commitment to sustainability, and we're funded from the dormant bank accounts via sustainable steps managed by the lottery with behalf of Welsh Government. So just in a nutshell, I'm not going to go through our process in any huge detail. The important people are the three speakers who come up after me. So in a nutshell, it starts with a conversation. So we have a conversation with the group and one of our local coordinators who are based in local third sector organisations about their work and what matters to them and what they think they can do about sustainability. Then we move on to facilitate an action planning process where the group can map out the steps that they can take to act on those issues. And then the third step is putting them in touch with people who've already done it before. What we call peer mentors, people from other communities or groups who've already done something similar to what they want to do. So it's sort of sharing experience, expertise and advice and showing people how it can be done. So the peer support is free to the groups who receive it, but we pay those who provide it. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like people doing good stuff in their community, for their community, and with an eye on future generations. We've supported hundreds of groups all across Wales since we've been going. Those who have taken action on a really wide range of things. So it could be on energy, land and nature, waste, transport, awareness raising, food, community enterprise. The list just goes on and on. So I've just got a few slides, very quick few examples of some of the groups that we've supported. So Women Connect First. It's a charity in the Riverside area of Cardiff, and they support people, women from ethnic minorities in a huge variety of ways. Climate change and its consequences is a very real issue to them. Some of the women that come into the project have fled from countries who are already experiencing climate change. So it's an issue for the organisation as a whole. They've undertaken a survey of their building from an energy, waste and water point of view. And even though they can't sort of undertake a lot of the action as yet, when funding allows, they will do that. But in the meantime, they've also been holding climate change workshops and awareness workshops. And some of the photographs you can see there are what's happened over the last year. They've been exploring issues around climate change with a lot of these women, and issues they've discussed include food, clothing, the fashion industry, and waste. The next group is Aber Food Surplus in Aberystwyth. Does exactly what the name suggests. So they collect and distribute from amongst community members surplus food that would otherwise be destined for landfill. They offer food sharing, a community fridge, pay as you feel meals for those who need it, and are always looking at ways of doing things better, both internally from their organisation point of view, but also involving more people in the business. They hold community events around food and raise awareness and how that affects climate change. More recently, they're looking at carbon accounting, really looking internally at how they work as an organisation, and they've installed a composter. We've done a lot of work with youth groups across Wales over a number of years now. Youth groups who are supporting young people to live fulfilled lives. They generally work on lots of different schemes, and we've supported lots of youth groups to do things like this, which is restoring disused bikes, using reclaimed parts and materials. Obviously, this skills up volunteers and gives them both practical and life skills, and gives them access to cheap way and obviously sustainable way of travelling as well. Another group in Pontypridd, this is the Digital Bench from Readvale Youth Group. So this is a solar powered public access phone charging point. So they'd already built gardens and other things out of pallets, and the main problem that they were trying to solve when they started was, how do we charge our phones when we're out and about? Obviously, we know this is something that young people want to do all the time. So they built this contraption then. So the roof has got solar panels on it. But then they thought they needed to have a seat there because, you know, charging takes time, so people would want to rest. If you've got a seat and a roof, then they realised it could become a resting place or even a sleeping place for the homeless people in their neighbourhood that they'd noticed. Also, people using that bench might appreciate a little bit of nature. So in those planters, you can just about see either side there, they were going to put some food, sort of fruit that people can have. So the planters there, and there's rainwater harvesting is happening off the roof as well. So this is such a good example of people coming together to create something really unique. And it changed completely from sort of what their original plan was. And I think we've got lots of other groups who are keen to replicate this throughout Wales as well. There's also groups who are motivated about food issues. Some of the photographs here, this is Incredible Edible Porthmadog, but I've already noted that one of our other groups, Incredible Edible Carmarthen, are on this call as well. Engaging people thinking about what makes for thriving and resilient communities, and obviously food for a lot of people is quite near the top of that list. And it can be a really good lever and stimulus for action, local action. Builds a sense of community and community worth through planting, nurturing, growing, harvesting, all the different skills that people are learning, the knowledge that they are gaining as they go along. And obviously good, healthy food also helps with climate change. So those are just a few examples. I could go on, I'm not going to, because I said this is just a short snapshot of what is happening. But all these examples are groups doing what matters to them. It's not anybody forcing anything on them. It's the groups coming to us or coming to our coordinators and saying, look, we want to do X, Y, or Z. So this is what matters to them. They are tackling community resilience and sustainability exactly where they are, and dealing with a problem that they want to see happening and the solution to it. So these are a lot of the hotspots. This is a little snapshot from our website. This is a snapshot of all the creative keep saying creative, community creativity that is going on in Wales at the moment. So each of these dots represents projects that we are supporting, and that there's plenty more. This needs updating quite often. So I'm going to leave it there just with a really short fly through account of how Renew Wales works, and gives you a bit of a flavour of what is to come with some of the other groups who will talk to you in more detail. Diolch yn fawr.
Brilliant, thank you. Diolch, Dele.
Sorry, apologies for the tech not working after all that.
Oh no, it's all right. Are you able to stop your screen sharing so that people can see? Brilliant, thank you. That's great. It's really great to see the amount of things that you've been able to support, and actually that supporting and connecting communities go hand in hand with the kind of sustainability element and doing small actions. And I love the solar powered bench. It's such a simple idea, but so great. So our next speaker is Jill from Friends of Graig Woods. So I will hand straight over to Jill to tell us a little bit about Graig Woods and what you've done with that area. You're on mute, Jill. The classic line now, that, isn't it?
There we are. How's that?
Brilliant. Yeah, good. Go ahead.
I'll go straight into the presentation, hopefully. And we'll go to share screen. Let's see if we can go to. How's
Brilliant. Yeah. Yep, we can see that. Great. So one screen keeps it simple, Dallas.
So anyway, hello everyone, I'm Jill Simons. I'm from the committee of Friends of Graig Woods, and I'm here to tell you today how we've been able to save some local woodland from development. The Graig area of Pontypridd is residential with steep wooded hills and heathland around it. It's a popular location for families and retired people. The land around the residential developments is in private ownership, but it's had open access for more than 50 years that I know of anyway, and is crisscrossed with public footpaths. In the spring of 2018, a local dog walker encountered a surveyor in the woodland who told them that the landowner was considering building a house in the woods. The local community immediately raised awareness via leafleting and social media with a view to contesting any planning application. The landowner became aware of the local opposition and decided to sell the land. So a group was set up on social media by a concerned resident who got other residents together to discuss the threat of development in the woods. In August 2018, when the woodland was put up for sale, a large area of Graig was leafleted to determine the level of support in the community for an organisation to save the woodlands from potential development. The responses to that leaflet campaign were collated, and 50 residents responded with contact details and pledges of donations. Due to the short time frame between the advertisement of the sale and the auction itself, a local business person stepped in and bought the land at auction to keep it safe from development until such time as the Friends of Graig Woods could raise the capital to purchase the woodland. So we held a meeting of concerned locals, and the attendees of that meeting became the initial members of the Friends of Graig Woods. A committee was elected by the membership, and that committee has organised the setting up of a formal society to raise capital and keep the community engaged. The members of the committee had little or no experience of fundraising or community projects. Coming from various backgrounds, we are self-styled rank amateurs. Our number one objective is to manage the woodland in such a way as to improve its natural condition. We plan to enhance the number, variety and quality of flora in general and wild edible plants for foraging, and to maintain the habitat for wildlife, of which there is a lot. We look forward to offering educational opportunities for local school children and recognise that as local residents get more involved in using and maintaining the woodland area, it'll have a positive impact on their health and well-being due to them being outdoors amongst nature. Through the difficult summer and autumn of 2020, the recreational use of the woods has increased enormously, and the community has certainly benefited. Ongoing, we need to improve the paths and wheelchair access and pushchairs too. Keeping the area in its natural state also helps us with our response to climate change by locking in carbon, coping with water runoff and soil erosion, while also improving the well-being and resilience of the community. So to our legal status, we decided that a community benefit society would be our most suitable legal entity. It's a not-for-profit organisation, with any profits being reinvested in the project or used for the benefit of the community as a whole. We registered with the Financial Conduct Authority using the Co-ops UK model rules, which are aimed at community enterprise. Our society is wholly governed by its members via an elected management committee. The first committee comprises the previously elected committee. For continuity reasons, we will, at the Society's first AGM, stand down and may put ourselves forward for re-election. All assets owned are locked into the Society and will be used solely for community benefit. So we had a community share offer, and under the rules, the membership of the Friends of Raglan Woods is made up of those who subscribe to at least one share. It's a special type of share known as community share, which is specifically designed for community benefit purposes and which can only be redeemed from the organisation itself, rather than being traded on the open market. Each member will have one vote, no matter how large or small their shareholding. Each share is worth £1, with the minimum shareholding set at £50 and the maximum shareholding set by the Founding Management Committee being limited to £2,500 per individual shareholder to ensure a balanced membership. Shares retain their face value and may be withdrawn upon application after 5 years at the discretion of the Management Committee, who also determine what proportion of the total share capital can be withdrawn at any one time. Bearing in mind, of course, the need for various initiatives to become established, retaining prudent reserves and for tax relief reasons, and the genuine hope that no one actually wants to withdraw from the Society. My move the slide on button isn't working. Try that one, that's better. See, we all have technical faults. We were able to complete on the purchase of the woods from our benefactor in July 2020 with the help of a grant from Trevallis Community Fund, which is a local authority funded organisation. Pontypridd Town Council invested the maximum allowable amount in the scheme, and because the Town Council had to conduct the necessary due diligence process into the Society's finances and government, it gave us a real credibility and confidence and the realisation that we had done things right. We were nevertheless a bit disappointed with the response from the local community as individuals. However, the knowledge that this project has been a community-led local initiative has certainly brought folk together. As soon as we're able, we'll have an AGM of shareholders and elect a management board for the future. And as you can see from this last slide, we're surrounded by green spaces. The dark green areas between the houses and the farm are natural woodland in parcels of private ownership. Our ambition is to join up all these pockets of land and create a community woodland safe from development forever. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Jill. Would you be able to stop sharing?
Yes, okay. Here we go.
That was really interesting for you to share. Thank you so much. First of all, that woodland looks beautiful. So well done, you guys. Also, you make it sound so easy. It sounds like you just like, yeah, we just did this. It's amazing. So I think that's probably like one of the questions I would ask is like, how did you guys kind of manage to do it? So I'm sure it was much harder than you may come across. So how did you kind of make sure that that you had that support? How did you, because you said you leafleted to begin with, right?
Yes, yeah. It's surprising. We leafleted. Well, I wasn't involved at the first leafleting, but a couple of local people, one of the local councillors, and the first I knew about it was when a leaflet came through my door.
Okay.
So, but then yes, somebody locally organised a garden party in their own garden, and people gathered round. So yeah, so originally, and at the first meeting, there were about 50 or so individuals had responded with concrete offers of donations. But yeah, the slow bit was actually the setting up the legal entity, which really did slow us down. And we were just really fortunate that someone stepped in and just had the ability to save it. It did take away the jeopardy as far as the community was concerned, and a few people were, oh well, it's safe now, we don't need to do any more. But yeah, we as an organisation agreed that we should aim to repay our benefactor within 2 years. And we just about made it by the skin of our teeth.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, quite a few people are saying, like, well done, that sort of business person who stepped in is just, well, amazingly lucky. Was that something did you kind of go out and lobby someone for that? You know, did you find someone, or did they step in just because
it was someone very local, and basically it was on their doorstep, and they came to the first meeting that we had as a concerned resident, and when we found out how soon, I think it was 2 weeks from we knew about it to the auction, and the guide price was £19,000. So I mean, we had almost no chance of raising that. So off they went to the auction and bought the land.
That's even more impressive to have got that together in 2 weeks. But yeah, fantastic. That's obviously really fortunate, and well done you guys for doing that. I think I just saw a question coming through the chat from Lizzie. I was interested in the community share offer and sort of why you went down that route. But Lizzie was asking, if your group didn't have experience with that yourselves, where did you get kind of advice from, and did you find mentors? How did you work out that was the best way for you to go forward?
Well, one of the local people is who came to the first meeting, and I think was invited by one of our councillors who lives locally from a signposting organisation locally called Interlink, who are funded by some of the local authorities, and he came along and was really helpful with signposting us to the various people who could help, and the Cooperative Centre Wales were just fantastic. They sort of allocated us a caseworker, and she came to loads of meetings, and we talked through whether to set up as a charity or one thing and another. And eventually we settled on the Community Benefit Society model, because that's what looked the best to us. And the asset lock was a particularly important thing, because we wanted to make sure that the land as an asset was intrinsically locked in to the society.
Brilliant. Great, thank you.
It was the cooperative people, Co-op Wales were absolutely fantastic with their help. I mean, we didn't know that they existed, so it's incredible how once you start networking, there's loads and loads of help out there, and free help as well.
Yeah, and I guess as well, just to say, for those of the people who are on the call who aren't based in Wales, I'm sure there's equivalents in England.
Absolutely.
Northern Ireland, Scotland. If you don't know where they are, have a look for them, or just contact the Welsh versions and ask them. Brilliant. I think we'll move on, if that's okay. Someone's just suggested that you should consider applying for the Green Flag Community Award. I think that's a Keep Wales Tidy type of thing.
Yes, yeah.
But if anybody has any more questions for Jill, keep putting them in the chat and we might have some time for them later. But thank you so much for sharing that, Jill, and well done, you guys. Brilliant to hear. Thanks. So next we'll be hearing from, who's next? Nick from U3A Sustainable Living Group will be telling us a little bit about what they've been up to. I can't see Nick at the moment, but I'm sure you're still here.
I'm here.
Oh, good. There you are. Are you happy to share now? That'd be great. Oh, it's telling me your bandwidth is low, but hopefully people can still hear you.
Hello, Pau. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you confirm that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Larry mentioned acting as individuals is relatively easy, but how to act as a community, and that chimes very closely for me with what I'm about to talk about. And Dallas referred to awareness raising as one of the characteristics of groups supported by Renew Wales, and that's definitely us. So very, very different to what Jill's just been talking about. I do have some slides which I'm going to share in a few minutes, but first a little story of how it came about. A couple of years ago, we were talking with our son, grown-up son, who's in his 30s and very active and increasingly active in climate change awareness and trying to do things. And although my wife and I and our family are all fairly well tuned into environmental issues and do what we can, there's always more you can do. But we were bemoaning the fact that on the whole subject of climate change, it's difficult for individuals because whilst you can make a change to what you're doing as an individual, what difference is that going to make? It's frustrating that for individuals it's maybe difficult to make a big change or a big difference. So anyway, he said, if you can inform or help others as well as yourselves to make a difference, then you're multiplying the results from your efforts.
Oh, yes.
So we thought, okay, we're involved already with our local U3A, University of the Third Age, which is for anybody who doesn't know, it doesn't matter in the detail, but it's a nationwide network designed for retired or semi-retired people, although there's no age limit. And the local U3A is very active, and it runs by individual members volunteering to facilitate a group in a topic that they're interested in. So we said, okay, if we formed a group of interested people or offered it to the U3A members on sustainability or climate change or something like that, and we got good quality information and help other people make choices that we also are considering, then we've multiplied the impact of what we might be doing ourselves. So we did have an initial meeting with or invited members in, and we had a lot of support. And it's turned out that our group, which we've christened the Sustainable Living Group within the Ruthin U3A, Sustainable Living, turned out that's the biggest group of all out of about 30 or more groups. So there's lots of support. So that's the context why it's U3A, and that's how it came about. It was prompted by our son referring to this multiplier effect. So I'm going to try and share my slides. Okay, there we are. Should see that, yeah?
Yeah, great, can see that. Thanks, Nick.
The district U3A Sustainable Living Group. That's a picture of the town centre of Ruthin. But it's not scrolling down. What's going on? Oh, there we are. Okay, we don't need to dwell on what the University of Third Age is, but I've just mentioned it. But I've prepared these slides so that they could stand alone afterwards if anybody wants to see them. So our initial proposition to members or potential members was, and I'm going to read this out. Would you like to reduce your environmental impact, but don't know how best to go about it? Are you unsure where to concentrate your efforts? do you want to do something about climate change, but wonder what an individual can actually achieve? And are you boggled by all the information and advice that's available? Well, obviously there were plenty of people who responded to that, because we had our initial meeting. It was the autumn 2019, about 30 odd people came, and we explained what we, being my wife and I, explained what we thought the group would do and how it would function, and we tabled a list of topics, and we took a vote around the table and prioritized 15 different topics, which we undertook to try and address. So, and we also agreed this, which the aims of the group, and the emphasis is on the first one, well, all three. Provide good quality information, that's what I've already mentioned, and tools like carbon calculators, for example, for members to help themselves. Sorry, I just want to get rid of some photos which are getting in the way for me. Yeah. Information, good quality information for members to help them make well-informed lifestyle choices, and then to act as a multiplier, as I've mentioned. So those members who are interested will take away that information and talk to their families and friends, and hopefully influence others, and to encourage and inspire people to active involvement in sustainable activities. So the usual U3A model here anyway is a monthly meeting, which is what we do. We go for a mixture of speakers, films, discussion, excuse me, discussions, sharing of members' knowledge. And also we had hoped to have a series of site visits during the last spring and summer. I have to say we're not intended as a lobbying group, nor as a group that actually does anything, takes action together. Although that could emerge with time, if as spin-outs, if you like, if members want to go off and do something. So it sounds a bit negative to say we don't do anything, but the key is in those top bullets: good quality information, multiplier effect, and encouraging and inspiring people. So no need to read or absorb all of this, but you can see, if you just glance down that list, of the selection of stuff that we've already talked about in our monthly meetings. Of course, we got to February, March last year and had to cancel or postpone our monthly meetings, and there was a hiatus. We did monthly newsletters with information and reading lists and local news and so on. And then eventually we thought, right, okay, this is dragging on, we got to do something else. So we started having Zoom meetings, and let's look, the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on that list we've done through Zoom, and it's worked pretty well. We've got some more monthly meetings lined up. That's the first little list there, and thereafter, well, what comes next? Well, sooner or later, we hope we can resume the face-to-face meetings. They are better. People prefer them. Some people really don't like Zoom at all. But there's a positive aspect to this. We found it easier for the speakers, because, well, the next meeting is somebody from Southwest Wales, and instead of travelling all the way up to Ruthin in North Wales, he can just log on, spend an hour talking to us, and log off again. So it's easier for the speakers. Obviously, we hope to reinstate the site visits that we'd postponed, and we'd like to do something, and we're only just starting to think about this, in the run-up to the climate change conference that's due to be held this coming November in Glasgow, COP26. So exactly what we're going to do about that, we're not quite sure yet, but some sort of mini COP or something like that. So of course it's not there are obstacles, and there are little problems sometimes. I've mentioned the pandemic. Reluctance to use online conferencing. Well, there's one couple in the group who don't even have the internet, believe it or not, but there are others who do, and perfectly IT literate, but just don't want to do it. But we've found as we've gone through the meetings month by month, the numbers have increased. So we had 20 odd at the last, 22, I think, at the last online meeting. And Another little obstacle occurred early on. I said they're a vocal minority. One or two people hog the floor, I feel like, interrupt the speakers, talk about their own issues and their own, excuse me, their own agenda, which was quite disruptive and negative. And then fairly passive involvement by members. So again, the U3A model is you turn up, somebody's organized, whatever it is, and you do it, whatever it is. In our case, listen to a speaker, ask a few questions, have a cup of tea and a biscuit if it is a face-to-face meeting, and then go away again. And most of the time it's been like that. So what did we do about it? Well, during the hiatus, during lockdown, I said we issued monthly newsletters. The online meetings are becoming more acceptable and of course more commonplace. But as things drag on, I think a lot of people are getting used to the idea, and it's working better for us. Firmer chairing of the meetings, well, that was a little lesson for me in terms of avoiding or steering the disruptive people away. They weren't disruptive on purpose, it's just their nature. And now we're currently reviewing what we've done to date, and we want to do a survey of members we know some people well, others not at all, and we want to be clear on what they know, what their skills and experience are, and what their interests are for the future, to try and encourage more active involvement going forward. There was one other meeting I'll mention. In November, I think it was, there was a 5-day online conference in Wales on climate change, and what I did was go through the program and identify which items in the agenda were most relevant to us, and ask for volunteers amongst the members. So different people listened in to their sessions and reported back, and that was great. It got people more engaged and more involved, and it wasn't just listening to a speaker and asking a couple of questions. So that worked well. So we're hoping the group will evolve, but I think that's probably all I want and need to say. As I said, it's very much about awareness raising and the multiplier effect. So it's not just my wife and I trying to change our lifestyle, it's providing good quality information for other people too. And if anybody wants to get in touch and ask questions or discuss things, there's our contact details. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you for that, Nick. I'll just wait for you. There you go, screen sharing's gone. Thank you very much for that. That was really interesting. It's interesting you sort of say that, like, we're not doing anything, but actually you are doing quite a lot, and it's refreshing to see that you don't need the crisis to be there for you know, it's not something really bad is happening, we need to come together and do something positive. It's actually, we just want to do something positive all the time anyway, and that kind of multiplier effect is really, really interesting. We had a few questions, just going to try and find them now. I had a question from Belinda asking, what do you think the best way is to enhance the multiplier effect, to enhance people's involvement, and probably most importantly, not make individuals feel nagged or overwhelmed? Because I imagine if you'd worry about going to the same people all the time, and yeah, that sort of nagging, overwhelming feeling.
Yeah, interesting. How to enhance the multiplier? Well, I have professionally an environmental background, but I'm not, as tends to be, one tends to generalize as one goes on rather than become a specialist. So I don't have specialist knowledge, so I can't bang on about any particular topic myself. So it's more about bringing in experts who can talk to the group. So as facilitators, my wife and I aren't saying you must do this or you should do this, but it's for people to listen to outsiders and hear their views. And the membership's knowledge and experience and awareness varies. So some people go away inspired by something they've heard. We make sure we write up each meeting. It's on our website. We circulate information for the speakers' slides. I dig out what I think is good quality reading, links to good quality reading information. and we just can't force people. It's just it's up to them then, entirely up to them. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't think of anything else to say to that at this stage, but
no, that's really useful. The actual, you know, you're not nagging, you're facilitating the conversation, aren't you? And yeah, to sort of have that, like, bringing in the experts is really useful. So thank you for that. I also saw a question. I think Delith had a similar question to what I was going to ask you, about kind of how are you able to kind of measure the effect you're having? Like, are you able to see the impact you've had, or how many people you've reached, or whether people's behaviours changed?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you are looking at, or you have been able to do?
No, it's not something we've looked at, and it's an interesting thought, because we're not. I've been in work where one is bound by targets and objectives, and one has to measure outputs and impacts, but we don't have to. So we haven't been forced down that road, but that should be part of the survey that we're planning now, to say, okay, we've had a dozen different meetings and on an amazing range of topics, and ask people what difference has it made. It would be interesting, and that might steer the way we work in the future. So we haven't done it, but we should do, and we will do. Thanks.
Brilliant. I think, to be honest, it's nice to, you know, be refreshing to not be reaching targets. You know, you're doing it for the reasons you want to do it, rather than because you've been told you have to reach targets, or you've got to hit funding expectations, etc. So it's great to see the kind of the passion is coming from you. I personally would be very interested if you do get kind of responses from those surveys to find out more. So we'll have to do a follow-up or something on it, make sure everyone's keeping in touch with you.
Yeah,
cool. I think that's all the questions for now. I think we'll move on to our next speaker, if that's okay, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us, and we might have more questions later on. Brilliant. Right, so next we should be joining Jess Sylvester from Ynni in Bangor. Again, I can't see Jess, so hopefully she's going to. Are you there, Jess? Oh, I can see you waving. Right, you're on mute. Just to give a quick reminder, if you weren't here at the start, Jess is going to be contributing in Welsh. So if you haven't already, make sure you click the interpretation button at the bottom and click on English if you're unable to understand Welsh. And someone's just put that. Yeah, great. Tech support. Sophie has put that in the chat. And if you have any problems, contact Sophie. Great. Diolch, Jess. Draw at y ti a edrych mlaen I clywed am eich project chi.
Thank you. Right, can everyone see this?
Yep, can see that. Great, diolch.
Okay. Dwi'm yn gwybod os wneith y chwarae, ond... Oh, ie.
Mae chydig bach o delay ar y nani, mae fel lan nawr. Great.
Right, okay. So, yeah, just dwi yn datblygwr cymuned ar gyfer maes ni, sef grŵp maes Gerchan, just tu allan i Bangor yn Gogledd Cymru. So, mae maes ni, grŵp lliwio di maes ni ar gyfer arian Building Communities Trust, so ymddiriedolaeth adeiladu cymunedau. Mae'r prosiect yna'n gweithio ar draws 13 cymuned ar draws Cymru, a buddsoddi lleol ydi enw'r rhaglen, so, a mae wedi cael ei ariannu gan y loteri. So mae'r rhaglen, yn y rhaglen yma mae'r cymuned yn cael miliwn o bunna dros 10 mlynedd i wario sydd bynnag maen nhw eisiau ar priodweddau'r cymuned, ar trigolion yn y cymuned, a nhw sy'n gwneud y penderfyniadau sydd mae penderfyniadau yn cael ei wneud ag ati. So ffordd ydi o wneud yn siŵr bod priodweddau'r cymuned yn cael ei cwrdd efo nhw. So, nhw sydd wedi penderfynu i cyflogi fi, a dwi'n atebol i trigolion ein cymuned ni, ac i'r rhedeg efo'i syniadau nhw, a wedyn Mantell Gwynedd, y CVC, sy'n cyflogi fi'n uniongyrchol. So, maes Gerchan, so wod ydi marchog sy'n cynnwys maes Gerchan, dwi'n gwybod sych chi'n gallu gweld arw bach fi, gyda fi. So, maes Gerchan ydi'r rhan yma tan y bryn sydd yma blantraeth yn fan hyn. Mae yna rhyw 4,000 o bobl yn byw yma. Dwi'n gwybod os fedrwch chi gweld yn iawn, ond mae yna yr afon Cegin yn fan hyn, ar un ochr, a'r goedwig yn fama, a wedyn mae yna clwb golf yn fan hyn, a mae yna rhyw fath o So mynydd ydi o Bangor Mountain, a wedyn mae'n rheilffordd lawr fan hyn. So mae'n lle sydd wedi cael ei mewn yn eitha llym, really. Ond mae yna gofod gwyrdd lyflu a hyfryd o'i gwmpas i gyd. A mae'n dod yn naturiol iawn i'r gymuned yma i gwneud gorau o'r gofod naturiol. Mae yna wedi bod cynlluniau mawr, so yna pryd wedd Communities First, 30 mlynedd yn ôl, oedd eilla i fyny'r ardal, yr afon. A mae gweithiwr prosiect amgylcheddol ni wedi bod yn gweithio efo grwpiau o gwirfoddolwyr i gwneud mynediad yn haws at yr ardaloedd hyfryd fatha'r afon tu allan. So mae yna dipyn o gerddi cymunedol, bobl yn dod at ei gilydd yn naturiol iawn dros bwyd a dros tyfu bwyd. A mae rhyw fath wedi gweithio mewn i prosiectau ni gyd. So un o'r prosiectau maes ni oedd i ail-ddatblygu'r parc chwarae yn y canolfan hyn, a gath ni grant Incredible Edible i rhoi planted i mewn a tyfu llysiau i bobl cael helpu hynny at nhw. So mae'r pethau yna wedi dod yn eitha hawdd at ni, ond pan da ni'n dechrau sbio ar ynni cymunedol, trafnidiaeth cymunedol, datblygu canolfan gymunedol newydd, sef un o'r priodweddau fi fel gweithiwr, a gerddi cymunedol ar sgêl chydig bach mwy, da ni wedi angen chydig bach o cefnogaeth un o'r experts, really. So dyna lle nath ni gofyn i'r New Wales am gefnogaeth dros trafnidiaeth i beicio electric ynni cymunedol a datblygu canolfan cymuned newydd sydd fedrwn ni wneud y gorau o'r datblygiad newydd yna a gerddi cymunedol. Mae'n rhaid fi ddeud bod yn hollol ffantastig, so ar ôl y sgwrs gyntaf lle oedd e jyst fatha rhyw fath o splurge, dyma di'r syniadau gyd sydd wedi glanio arna fi a dyma sut mae pob eisiau wneud nhw. Mae bob dim really o amgylch y cenhedlaeth nesaf, so it's all for the next generation. A rhan mawr o hwnna ydy edrych ar ôl yr amgylchedd a dechrau taclo hinsawdd. A mae hwnna wedi bod yn blaenoriaeth mawr wrth i ni datblygu bob prosiect gan gynnwys y canolfan cymuned newydd. So, na i jyst fynd trwy heina un o'r ôl llall. So, na i dechrau efo'r trafnidiaeth y beicio electric. So, da ni newydd dechrau lot o'r prosiectau yma, so does yn byd cadarn i ddangos eto, ond mae hwn yn rhywbeth da ni wedi gallu gwneud hyd yn oed trwy'r cyfnod clo ydy gweithdai baic a dros i baics sydd wedi cefnogi efo hyn, a maen nhw wedi bod yn hollol ffantastig. Maen nhw'n really gwybod eu stwff, maen nhw'n cyfeillgar iawn, a nath nhw cynnal gweithdi efo ni i trwsio beicio mis Tachwedd jyst ar ôl y fire break lle oedden ni'n gallu, ond oedd y niferoedd yn eitha cyfyngedig gan bod rhaid i ni cadw'r niferoedd i lawr really yn yr eglwys ar adeg yna, ond fydden ni'n rhedeg mwy o'n nhw. So, y syniad oedd o'na dipyn o bobl wedi bod yn sôn am rhyw fath o gweithdi trwsio beicia, bod nhw efo beic a bod nhw eisiau defnyddio fe chydig bach mwy, doedd nhw ddim mor cyfforddus efo trafnidiaeth cyhoeddus oherwydd Covid, a bod nhw hen beicia eisiau trwsio. Dwi'n meddwl rhyw 3 o bobl cerdded allan o'r gweithdi yma efo beic yn gweithio. A mae gen i rhestr mawr o bobl sy'n eisiau gweithdi beics eto ar ôl i Owen, un o'r bobl oedd wedi wneud hyn sy'n rap artist yn maes Gerchan, wneud y fideo yma. So, na i jyst dangos yn sydyn sy'n nath o weithio i'r fideo yma. Music Owen sy'n y fideo. It is like 250 and they that was 250. So why you should get a decent price. What kind of face did I put like? Can I leave this with them? Yeah. So I'm alone again, in my zone with a pen. With my thoughts overloaded, most composed and still I'm hoping to be holding zen. I thank you for all the support standing by me when I was stressing out. My emotions can get hold of men too. Sometimes I don't know what to do, I take so much on until I'm feeling like my doubt's condemned. And I'm down just like a broken dam. I hope that what we had was no pretend. Un o'r pethau eraill da ni wedi bod yn trafod ydy e-cargo bikes. So da ni'n darparu lot o bwyd i rhyw 200 o tai ers y cyfnod clo gyntaf, a da ni hefyd yn sbio ar datblygu market garden yn yr ardal. So da ni'n sbio ar electric cargo bikes, a Oedd yn hollol minefield I ni, really, yn sbio ar y spec I gyd, ond oedd beth fod yn ffantastig o dros e-bike sy'n just rhedeg trwy bob dim. Hwn di'r un ydych chi isio, os ydych chi'n isio gwario gormod a poeni gormod am y maintenance, y pethau sy'n ni falle ddim wedi meddwl amdanyn nhw'n iawn. A hefyd, da ni wedi bod yn cael chydig bach o cymorth trwy'r New Wales yn sbio ar electric vehicles, ond beth da ni really eisiau yn cymuned ni ydy minibus electric, a mae hwnna'n ddrud iawn, so da ni'n trio ffeindio cyllid ar gyfer hwnnw. Un o'r gyrwyr mawr ar gyfer hwnna ydy'r clwb bocsio. Mae gen ni clwb bocsio amazing ym Maes Gerchen, a maen nhw'n gwneud lot o, neu mi oedden nhw'n gwneud lot o teithio ar draws y wlad, really. A hefyd teuluoedd eitha mawr, so os y car ddim cweit digon fawr, a lot o apwyntiadau yn yr ysbyty, deintydd, children's appointments yn cael ei fethu, ond da ni angen rhywbeth chydig bach yn fwy nag car electric. So mae hwnna'n rhywbeth sydd wedi dechrau. Y sesiwn nesaf efo'r beicio fydd sesiwn diwrnod llawn pan mae'r tywydd yn gwella fel bod ni'n gallu gwneud o tu allan I completely take the bike apart, a wedyn ail adeiladu fo, a wedyn mae gennym ni 6 o bobl sydd eisiau convertio beic nhw I e-bike, a maen nhw'n hapus I talu amdano fo, ond be maen nhw rili angen ydy'r arweiniad ar hwnnw. So, y peth arall da ni wedi gofyn am cymorth efo fo ydy ynni cymunedol, a newid dechrau'r sgyrsiau, da ni rili efo adra'r Housing Association sydd bia rhyw 80% o'r tai ym Maes Gerchen, a hefyd efo Energy Service Wales wedi bod yn ffantastig a datblygu egni cymunedol I sgopio allan beth yw'r opsiynau. So mae datblygu egni cymunedol wedi sbio ar yr afon, a dydy hwnna ddim digon fawr rili I wneud dim byd efo fo. Mae Energy Services Wales yn sgopio allan potensial ar gyfer melyn wynt. A wedyn gydag adra, da ni sbio ar air source heat pumps a solar PV, yn enwedig ar y fflatiau ar y dde fan hyn, lle dydyn nhw ddim efo mains gas, a da ni wedi bod yn cefnogi lot o bobl ar fuel poverty ers y cyfnod clo gyntaf. So da ni angen taclo hwnna o agwedd newid hinsawdd a hefyd o ran fuel poverty. Ac eto, da ni sbio ar cyfleon ar gyfer cynhyrchu chydig bach o incwm ar gyfer y pot cymunedol. So un o'r pethau ydy bod yn Maes Gerchen ydy bod prosiect wedi mynd a dod dros y flynyddoedd, ond does am byd wedi aros oherwydd y cyllid. So os fedra ni wedyn cynhyrchu incwm canoliadwy, fydd hwnna'n gwneud byd o wahaniaeth I canolfwyedd prosiectau cymunedol ni hefyd. So da ni just yn y stages gyntaf o sbio ar hwnna, ac un o'r pethau da ni angen gwneud ydy bympio ni fyny at rhywle I ffrynt priodweddau adra yr Housing Association I cwrdd â targedau dadcarboneiddio nhw, gan fod lot o maes G ar gas. Mains gas dydy o ddim yn priodwedd iddyn nhw, so beth da ni'n sbio ar ydy employer dau o gweithwyr dan y cynllun Kickstart I sbio I wneud y fatha'r MOT maen nhw'n gael fo. Fatha MOT ar y tai I gyd yn sbio ar be di'r solutions ynni gorau yn Maes Gerchen a ydy ynni cymunedol ffitio efo hwnna a gydag Energy Service Wales wedyn ni'n sbio gwneud feasibility study a gweld lle mae cyfrifoldebau ni a'r Housing Association yn eista a lle da ni'n mynd o fanno. Hwn sy'n really exciting ar hyn o bryd, a mae hwn yn datblygu'n eitha ffast, ydy, so un o priodweddau'r cymunedau ydy I gael canolfan cymunedol gofod I dod at ein gilydd. Does na ddim llawer o gofod lle da ni'n dod at ein gilydd ar hyn o bryd. A da ni wedi bod yn gweithio ar y partneriaethau dros hwn ers rhyw chydig o flynyddoedd a bellach mae'r Cyngor Gwynedd wedi dod â hanner miliwn o bunnau tuag at y datblygiad newydd a hefyd mae Betsy Cadwaladr yr Health Board yn rhan o'r cynlluniau a mae'r canolfan gymuned I gyd yn seiliedig ar y cenhedlaeth nesaf, so fydd yna Children's Therapies a Children's Services, ond wrth graidd y datblygiad fydd y social function. So bar a gofod cymunedol ceginiau, llefydd I goginio a gerddi tu allan. A wedyn fydd yna kind of soft entrance i'r gwasanaethau a mae trigolion wedi gofyn am y gwasanaethau hyn ar terma nhw. So fydd yr holl beth ar terma trigolion. A beth sy'n really pwysig a sydd wedi dod fyny eto ag eto wrth ymgynghori ydy bod o yn canoliadwy o safbwynt rhedego, fel bod ni ddim yn rhedeg allan o bres i gallu cadw fo, o safbwynt rhentu gofod i'r gymuned ar gyfer private functions, fatha parties, christenings, cynhebrwn, fath yna o beth. A yn fwy na dim byd, mae hwn i'r genhedlaeth nesaf a dyn ni angen fod yn meddylgar iawn o newid hinsawdd. So dyn ni'n sbio ar sustainable building a dyn ni wedi cael chydig bach o gefnogaeth gan LIZZIE WYN ar yr ochr yna, a hefyd dyn ni'n sbio ar Ynni renewable energy ar ei cyfer. A mae Energy Service Wales a DEG a SGO wedi bod yn hollol ffantastig ochr yma. Maen nhw wedi gwneud reci ar yr eglwys sydd yn un potential safle ar gyfer y datblygiad yma. A o ganlyniad mae'r eglwys yn barod wedi newid system boiler nhw. A wedyn, dyn ni'n sbio ar yr canolfan ieuenctid fel safle arall, a hwnna di'r un mwy debygol o gael ei ddefnyddio. Ond o'r dechrau, dyn ni wrth i mynd allan am feasibility studies am y prosiect yma rwan, ac am ddim mae Energy Service Wales yn mynd i gweithio gyda pwy bynnag sy'n gwneud y feasibility study a'r pensaer i wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n gwneud y gorau o'r cyfle i adeiladu adeilad newydd, o'r newydd, sydd yn cynhyrchu gymaint o bosib o Ynni ei hun. Falle, chydig bach yn extra, a fedrwn ni wedyn plygio mewn i dosbarthu i tai rwyd fo, ond ar hyn o bryd, mae'n edrych yn mwy debygol sy'n ni'n defnyddio air source heat pumps a solar PV array. Ond maen nhw'n mynd i siarad efo'r pensaer ynglyn y safle, beth yw'r aspect, ydyn ni'n mynd am pitched roofs a flat roof efo'r solar PVs, ydyn ni'n dylunio amgylch air source heat pump gyda pethau fatha underfloor heating i wneud yn fwy efficient a'r math yna o beth. So mae expertise nhw wedi bod yn hollol invaluable, dim just o ran gwybod faint mae'n mynd i gostio a pa fath o modelau sydd ni angen sbio arno, ond hefyd fel bod ni fel partneriaid gyda partneriaid eraill ni yn gwybod beth da ni'n sôn amdan, pan da ni'n gofyn am sustainable building, pan da ni'n gofyn am sustainable energy i fod yn rhan o'r datblygiad yna. Maen nhw'n cymryd ni o ddifrif am bod ni nawr yn gwybod chydig bach beth da ni'n siarad am. Maen nhw jyst wedi bod mor available hefyd, os da ni eisiau just galw a gofyn cwestiwn, os da ni eisiau dod yn ôl at nhw trwy'r broses, nid i golygu bod hwn yn mynd i ddigwydd. A wedyn, da ni hefyd wrth i yn datblygu gardd cymunedol, so rhyw fath o market garden social enterprise, mae hwn yn rhywbeth eitha mawr, a project Growing for Change tu Penrhyn, sef Recovery Centre a'r cyffiniau Maes Gerchan ydi o, a maen nhw yn barod yn supplyio salad fresh i siopa a restaurants a caffis, a maen nhw'n edrych ar ehangu i'r hen cae ffwtbol dros nesaf sy'n rhan o'r gymuned ac agor y gerddi ar cyfleon hyfforddiant, gwirfoddoli, bwyd fresh i fyny i'r gymuned. So, da ni'n partneri efo nhw a da ni wrthi ar hyn o bryd, so mae yna cae ffwtbol newydd, gofyn i rywun poeni, pen arall i'r ystad. So, da ni yn cefnogi fel yda ni efo unrhyw grŵp ym Maes Gerchan, so da ni'n cefnogi i fynd am major planning ar hyn o bryd, a mae cyngor LIZZIE WYN a Social Farm and Gardens a cael mynd at y person iawn trwy cyngor LIZZIE WYN yn uniongyrchol wedi bod yn ffantastig yn y broses yna hefyd. So mae hwnna wedi wneud i'r holl beth sy'n chydig bach yn ffastach, a mae hynna'n pwysig ar hyn o bryd efo'r pwysau mawr ar bwyd lleol, darpariaeth bwyd lleol hefyd. A wedyn, fedra i'n sôn am Enterprising Action mewn cymuned heb sôn am Peter Whitby, a mae o yn gwneud y pethau yma i hun. Dwi'n meddwl bod o yn y galwad yma. A mae o jyst wedi bod yn gwneud bob math o brosiectau ffantastig yn dangos sut mae Ynni'n gallu cael ei cynhyrchu fel unigol neu fel cymuned sy'n kind of raising visibility a dangos y prosiectau yma, a mae yna bob math o gwahanol syniadau ffantastig. Mae hefyd yn gweithio ar yr ochr Ynni cymunedol. Mae syniadau mynd o'r plant yn goleuo parc i fyny trwy offer beic, so exercise equipment, i bob math o brosiectau educational arall sydd yn plygio mewn i'r gweithio adra hefyd i ddangos sut mae'r pethau mae'n gweithio ag adeiladu'r ein hunan. Mae'n siŵr bod chi ofyn cwestiynau iddo fo wedyn hefyd. A dyna ni.
Waw, diolch Jess. Waw, mae cymaint yn mynd mlaen â chi, mae loads yn digwydd fyna. Da iawn chi. O'n i eisiau gofyn cwestiwn yn gyflym, os ti'n hapus. Oedd cymaint, mae fe'n edrych bod cymaint o syniadau gyda chi, a wnaethoch chi dweud ar y dechrau bod chi wedi dod at eich gilydd dweud, reit, be dyn ni eisiau gwneud. Sut wnaethoch chi penderfynu be i wneud cyntaf? Fel, be oedd o'ch chi wedi trefnu trwy y cyllid oedd o gael, neu sut wnaethoch chi fel wneud priorities, really?
So, mae bob dim wedi, am bod ni'n mod yn ymateb i trigolion yn y gymuned, a pan maen nhw'n dod at ni efo syniad, neu mae'r grŵp llywio yn dweud fod ni eisiau gwneud y math yma o beth, mi'n evolfio'n really naturiol, so falle sy'n ni, bydda rôl fi ydi cefnogi a facilitatio lle mae bobl yn gofyn i fi wneud. A dyna really ydi rôl y grŵp llywio hefyd. So mi'n just kind of evolfio really, os mae yna cyfle, da ni'n kind of neidio arno fo, a da ni'n kind of gwthio fo ymlaen, a wedyn weithiau da ni'n gorfod disgwyl am cyllid, neu oedd lot o'r syniadau yma fatha'r ynni cymunedol a gyda'r hwb ag ati a gyda'r farm garden. So oedd hyn i gyd yn kind of stuck ar expertise ag amser. So mae cael help Renew Wales a cael cyngor bobl sydd wedi bod trwy'r un peth o blaen wedi just gallu symud heina i gyd yn ei blaenau yn really fast. Ond fel o'n i'n dweud ar y dechrau, so mae dod at ein gilydd i tyfu a gyda bwyd a pethau fel yna. Wedi digwydd yn holl naturiol, a mae gennym ni llwyth o gwirfoddolwyr sydd wedi bod yn rhedeg efo bob math o bethau. So mae'r syniadau i gyd yn dod gan gwirfoddolwyr, gan bobl sydd eisiau gweld newid yn y gymuned eu hunan. So mae'r egni yna i gyrru fo ymlaen, a wedyn ni'n cefnogi lle mae angen mewn ffordd. Ond mae'n completely, organic and it evolves. A weithiau da ni angen sbio am amser mwy o bobl i cefnogi.
Na, gwych. A mae fe'n gwych i weld sut mae'r cysylltiadau yn y cymuned yn effeithio'r waith chi'n neud na calon y beth. Y cwestiwn arall wedi cael trwodd, o'n i'n gofyn, mae cysylltiadau cymaint o fel organisations a grwpiau sy'n gweithio, fel nes i sôn am Energy Service Wales a yn amlwg Renew Wales. So sut wnaethoch chi ffeindio'r cysylltiadau yna? Neu pwy nath fel signpostio chi i pwy yn gyntaf? Achos fi'n siŵr bydd hwnna'n defnyddiol i lot o bobl sydd yn y galwad yma, jyst i gwybod lle ydych chi'n ffeindio, lle ydych chi'n gwneud Google search, neu ydych chi'n cael, nath rhywun, suggestion.
Dyna lle oedd Renew Wales yn dod i mewn really, achos dyna, oedden ni'n chydig bach, oedden ni'n gwybod lle i droi. So ni'n wedi gallu ffeindio Energy Service Wales, so ni'n wedi dall beth sydd gyda nhw i gynnig, ond oedd Jackie, so efo Renew Wales ar ôl y sgwrs gyntaf yna, efo Jackie sy'n gweithio efo ni, a wedyn hi sy'n kind of rhoid yr action plan at ei gilydd a gweithio efo ni a mynd yn ôl ymlaen rhwngthon ni, a da ni'n rhoi blaenoriaethau ar gyfer beth da ni eisiau gwneud gyntaf efo Renew Wales. A mae'r broses yna eto wedi bod yn eitha organic, so os mae'na cyfle i gweithio efo'r Housing Association, da ni'n gweithio hwnna gyntaf. Os da ni angen sortio beth allan ar gyfer y feasibility study efo'r hwb newydd, da ni'n sortio hwnna allan gyntaf. Ond really, mae'r Jackie sydd wedi ffeindio pawb da ni angen siarad efo nhw, a bob hyn a hyn mae rhywun da ni wedi siarad efo nhw wedi dweud, ewch chi holi'r person yma dwi'n nabod nhw. So da ni rhywsut wedi cael access at networks nhw hefyd, a mae yna gymaint o expertise allan yna. Mae wedi bod yn briliant. Ond sy'n ni ddim wedi gallu symud pethau ymlaen yn y ffordd yma heb Renew Wales. Da ni'n really ddiolchgar am y cefnogaeth yna. Yeah, it is a minefield.
Diolch. It's a minefield, ond mae yna pobl mas na. Chi jyst angen ffeindio'r pobl iawn. Gret, diolch Jess. Mae rhywun wedi dweud hefyd, action plan helps with priorities, so mae hwnna in a group chat. Diolch Jess. Right, I'll turn back to English now, and thanks so much for that, Jess. That was like, yeah, amazing to hear from you. If anybody has any questions for any of our speakers just before we finish up, I did see one that I thought would be quite useful and might be useful for people on the call. Whether any of our speakers have any advice for engaging with the unengaged, because I imagine that's something that comes up quite often. You have the usual suspects, and you have to go to the same people to get support. But how do you, have you got any tips on how you've brought in new people to work with you? And that's out to anybody who has some suggestions. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
The nature of our group is that it is only the engaged that will join in, but I'll come back to the multiplier effect that their families or friends may not be, and it's up to the individual members that we hopefully are informing and inspiring to do the job. And I believe it's working, and we have some feedback, but no. So it's a bit of a weak answer, but we're not. Our group isn't designed to go out there and draw in people. So that's the nature of the beast.
Great, thank you, Jess.
I think in some ways, because our approach is very much from the ground up, and it's, we're working on things that people have already said, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to do it in some ways. But then sometimes it's about engaging enough people with the fact that here's a project and here's a resource here, and this is how to access it. And it's been a little bit of a balance, I think, initially for us, was putting things on and trying lots of different things, almost always about food and fun. And then I think it was our community, so we held a weekly community cafe, and that really got the ball rolling, and that became a real kind of, a real place to bring ideas and chat about anything that might need addressing or changing, or that kind of transformed everything. So we ended up with so many people coming with so many different ideas, and we've really missed that over the COVID period, really. But there's still so much of that energy going, and so many of those projects going, and I think that meant that we kind of got to know lots of different people, and lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds as well. And it was, for us, I think it was about having a complete patchwork of different kinds of things that might appeal to different kinds of people as well, and then having those conversations and building on what's important to everyone.
Brilliant. I think as well, a few people have put in the chat about everyone's got to feed people. Well, that I love that, because obviously my work is supporting people to do the big lunch. It's all about bringing people together, sharing food, having fun, starting those conversations and having those connections. It's more difficult now, but it's not impossible. There's still ways to share food across Zoom calls or on your doorstep. So that's something that we think is really, that's a tip I would give personally. Delith, did you have your hand up to respond to that as well?
Yeah, it was just a quick one, really. I think there are lots of groups that always find the same people are engaged, and it's the same whether you're talking about the environment or any other subject, really. There tends to be the same people who are community minded and community active keep popping up everywhere, and those who are not don't. But I'm just wondering if there's we've seen perhaps an opportunity, more unusual suspects come into Renew Wales since the start of the COVID pandemic. People who perhaps wouldn't have thought about it before have been thrust back into their communities, and have enjoyed being there, have enjoyed speaking to their neighbours and helping them do things. And I think perhaps if we can try and collectively tap into some of that enthusiasm and it's what motivates people, isn't it? And I think if people are suddenly being motivated by, oh my gosh, I usually commute out of my community first thing in the morning, come back in, shut the doors, and I stay in here. And over the last year or so, they've realised that, there's a lot more nicer people and a lot of activity going on in their locality, and there are ways of meeting people. I think if you start perhaps from that basis, and I think there is a big untapped potential out there now that more people have thought along those lines due to the COVID pandemic. Maybe still doesn't make it completely easy. I'm just thinking, there may be some more people who were just so wound up in their daily commute and their work things, and now that they've had a bit more of work-life balance, they're appreciating what's around them a lot more, and there may be some more potential there, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I can see that the chat, I can't keep up with the chat because it's really active, so thanks everyone for contributing there, and thanks. I did see something that someone says on climate change, that, or Alison said, research shows children, particularly girls, have the greatest influence on their parents. So engage with youngsters. That sounds like a good approach. We are quickly running out of time, so I'm really sorry if you've put a question in the chat and I haven't got to it. I would just like to amazing thanks to our speakers. It's been really insightful to hear what you've all been doing, and all doing such different things and engaging people in such different ways, but really effective. So thank you so much for that. Thank you everyone for joining us. We would appreciate you if just before we finish, again, it's a bit of housekeeping. We have a survey that we share just to help us evaluate these sessions. So if you could, I think Joe will pop that in the chat box in a minute. So if you could just click on that and let us know what you think of the session, and if there's any other topics you'd like us to cover, that would be really useful. Again, thank you to Delith, Jess, Jill and Nick. We'll share some links. If you guys want to share any links with us that we can share with everyone in a follow-up email, we can do that. And also just to remember to keep an eye out on Eden Community's website and Facebook page, and we'll update you on other events we've got on. And I do recommend, if anyone's interested in doing more in their community, whether you've got an idea, you want to get started, find out about our community camp, which again, I can see loads of links coming in chat. So I think you should, I'm not sure if you're able to save the chat. I think that function is available for you. Sometimes it's switched on, sometimes it's switched off. But if you can, feel free to take those links. And if not, we'll try and share them up in the follow-up email. Brilliant. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a lovely rest of your Tuesdays and hope to see you all again soon. Thank you. Hwyl fawr, diolch.